I'm ready.
The drama, the excitement, the legislative session is fully underway. This is Heidi Hatch with KUTV 2 News, Maura Carabello from the Exoro group, and her sidekick, the House Speaker, the Utah House Speaker, Mike Schultz. I don't know why I say that.
It's been a while.
No drama, though.
No drama. It's fun to
sorry.
have you both back in the room again. I like people who are friends who can joust nicely, so this is going to be good.
Well, so that was where I would. May I start it with a public service
Please
announcement?
do.
A little PSA. No, this is good.
I can't wait to see where this is going.
Yeah, this is good.
I don't know if
Don't start out like that. Don't start out like that.
I'm going to be optimistic.
You should be.
Okay.
My public service announcement to our listeners are that Mike Schultz and I are friends.
We are.
And the guff that I get when
For hanging out with
Mr.
him?
Speaker and I have a good-natured disagreement. I'm just saying, we're fine. We're fine. I just would like the listeners to know, you and I, we're fine. We're
fine.
squared away. You're fine.
We're squared away. Maura is a very passionate debater, and she's really good at debate. She's just wrong on the issues, and so that's why she has to cut over top of me so
That's
that she can
exactly
speak.
what this public service announcement was about.
See, I'm just adding
Is the
my...
generosity that Mike gives in, me
love that.
allowing to
But-
express my losing argument.
I kind of like all the listeners feel sorry for me.
Oh my gosh, the amount of you're so mean. I'm just saying, he's got a title. He's got power. I mean, let's not feel sorry
Yeah,
for
let's
him.
not. Although, thank you for making time to be with us. The legislative session is a busy one. What number day is this and we count? Because when we say a 45-day session, we're counting weekends, right?
Yeah.
So this is day...
Day 10, 11, probably. somewhere
feels like
there.
10 months.
It does. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably day 10 or 12.
And if you
somewhere
guys
in
are
there.
watching on
11,
video, we've
day
got
11.
a couple friends here. Tell me your
Yes.
intern's name again.
Well, I'm not a full functioning adult, so I have to be chaperoned.
Oh, yes, you do.
Yeah.
And Jackson's
So
here
we
as
have
well.
Marin, my intern.
Okay.
She's from BYU. God's School, as we like to refer BYU
That's
as.
not how the Notre Dame folks.
Grab it here and bring it on in.
Notre Dame
Yes.
is God's school, too.
It is.
God can have two schools. Then
Before
have
we
Jackson.
get into the real issues, though, of football, you went to a football game this weekend. It didn't turn out how you wanted,
Didn't
but
turn out.
it was a good, fun game.
It was. The Broncos lost. We're still sorting through it. Go Seattle Seahawks is.
That's your team now.
Well, they're my team, but that's where I can't support the Patriots, even though they're an AFC team. It was cold, and since we're not having winter, it felt doubly cold.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. It was playoff football, but I actually complained to Mike. It wasn't chilly. It was really cold.
I saw the snow. It was
Yeah,
snowing.
It was cold.
Yeah.
Looked cold.
And we lost.
But it was fun to be there.
Totally fun. I mean, if you can go to an NFL playoff game, it's fun.
You should go.
Yeah.
All right. It's an experience. Also an experience is the legislative session. So I want to talk about this. There's going to be a lot of stories. You've heard a lot of stories already that the legislative session, the big, bad, mean legislators want everyone to cut 5% from their budgets. And at the same time, we're talking about possible tax cuts. So, Speaker, you get to go first. Tell me how this works, because if you're wanting to cut from everyone's budgets, but also give everyone a cut at home, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, what we're saying is similar to what we said last year with higher education, right? We'd like you to look at what are the areas of higher education that's working, what are the areas that is not working, where can we find efficiencies, and where can we take and reallocate that money to that's more productive. Instead of just saying, hey, let's spend more money in this certain department, let's look inside that department, see where things can be cut, and then what are the needs moving forward that's a higher priority. So, some of these things that I'm really disappointed in, I'll just say, like education, for example, we're not cutting the education budget. In fact, we actually just increased the education budget by over $200 million with the base budget bill. So we've already gave education increase. But we are looking inside of education where are areas that we can cut and then reallocate that money into education to make it better. So same thing with social services program. Look, people saying you're cutting the DSPD waiting list. That's not true. We've actually taken big steps to expand that program the last couple of years because they're some of the most vulnerable among us, and we need to make sure that we're doing our best to take care of the DSPD waiting list. But there's also programs inside of the social services budget that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. And one of the things that's always frustrated me about government is the amount of administration. And I have to give kudos to higher education, because in their budget cuts that they did last year, and they took and reallocated it, they cut, or 30% of their cuts came from administrative costs. So I think that's what we're looking at. Let's just be more efficient is what we're looking for. And then also, if there's some revenue left over, we'd like it to make it the 6th year in a row for tax cuts. So we'll see how this goes.
So for me, the demerit is in style points. It's not in. I actually do trust that the legislature at the end of the day will fund the basics that they need. In my mind, I hope that is the most vulnerable among us. And as the speaker has just shown, there are indications that they know that, and they're going to continue to protect that. So there is the question of, why do we seem to have a recent habit of sort of a throwdown, which is a challenge, and then and then some common sense along the way. I wish they'd stop the throwdown, but that's just style points. The one thing I will take a zing at is 6th in a row on property tax cuts from my seat is
income tax cuts.
Is a vanity play. It's inconsequential. It's $45 a family. So I think that this is just a political move and a vanity play to go on some bumper sticker somewhere. I don't think it's a significant thing. And I do think that you do reach a point. I think it's a fair argument to say, how do you guys want to have both the conversation of a tax cut and a conversation about cut to services?
So you could get 4 Chipotle burritos or maybe 5 coffees. Does it matter to families to get that $45 back, you think?
Well, let me just tell you how we do it in Utah. So you have states like Arizona that took one great big tax cut over 1 year. And that today, Arizona's facing almost a $2 billion budget deficit because they did it that way. Utah, we've taken a little bit every year. We're responsible. We want to manage the budget correctly. We don't want big cuts. We don't want to cut too much and then have to come back and increase taxes or make significant cuts in areas that really hurt. And so we want to take a measured approach. And so that's why by doing a little bit every year, guess what? Whether it's $45, $50, $60 a year, which some years it's been more than that, today, it counts for a 10% budget cut over the last 5 years. We want to increase it. We'd take it to 11 or 12% if we have the ability. But what that has increased up to somewhere between, depending on the family, but $300 to $600 for the average family for the state of Utah. That becomes a big deal.
Are you just shifting that, though, to local government? Isn't that a shift to county and muni governments?
Not at all. No. That's their.
They would argue that you are. That you would argue that in many instances, the burden of taxation, or our big trick here is that the legislature often doesn't refer to user fees or that type of tax as a tax. I mean, we love to cut income tax for some reason. Yeah. I think it's years of Republican messaging that somehow income tax is by far the most entrenched, even though we've seen in a lot of economic studies.
It does feel nice when you get a check and you're not taxed on it. I've had that in Florida before.
Yeah, but when your fees are going up, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you look at the states who are the best to retire from, that's not the best indicator of how much you pay, actually. And we're piling on fees and services for retail transactions and celebrating that our income tax. It's a whole taxation thing. It's about what you call it.
Utah's fees haven't even went up as much as the inflationary component has. And when we start talking about local governments and property tax, 2 total separate issues.
Yeah.
And I get the school district, for example, came out and said it's the legislature's fault we're having to increase property taxes, but the examples they gave weren't accurate. And so I don't feel like that's fair. Every government entity looks for scapegoats. Sometimes the legislature tends to be the biggest scapegoat, so that's what people do is they say, well, blame it on the legislature. We'll say, well, give us a specific example.
When do you stop having
and I'll give you an
tax
example.
cuts?
I'll give you an example.
Will we always just have room to tax cut?
Salt Lake County, let me go with this. Salt Lake County said it's the legislature's fault that we're having to increase taxes because unfunded mandates. Guess what? We told Salt Lake County, you actually have to focus on the number one most important thing local government does, public
safety.
Safety, yes, thank you. Public safety. It was a revolving door with very violent criminals because they had no room in their jails. Well, I'm sorry, it's not the state's responsibility to take care of the county jail. That's the county's responsibility. So we did. We came in and said, you have to expand your jail to meet the capacity needs for public safety. The state shouldn't even have to had to do it, but because we had so much pressure coming from the residents and businesses inside Salt Lake County, we had to make that force, and so we did. But that's their job, is to provide public safety. It's not the state's job. So it's not fair to the residents in Weber County, Davis County, St. George, Utah County to fund Salt Lake County's jail expansion.
Is that a fair assessment, you think?
No, I mean, I think it's a fair assessment that the county's primary job in public safety is jails. The muni's private responsibility is police services, and then the state has been hand in glove growing their Department of Public Safety year after year, which I've actually applauded, because the public safety department is as good as it has ever been in the last few years. But you know, Speaker's not telling you that they're growing it, so they're growing their footprint. We're seeing more and more state public safety. So I think that is an illustration looking for an ideology, and he's found it. But I do think in general, if you were to talk to down the stream cities and counties, they have been under attack, perhaps fairly from a philosophy of the state, but they have had a lot of those goods and services that they do provide pushed into theirs. And we're about to come into a problem in which growth, we finally reached a point in which growth has hit services. So our infrastructures who have not been keeping up, we don't pay very much for a lot of our basics. And all of us want it that way. That's the goal. The goal for everybody, regardless of ideology. But you reach a point with infrastructure needs. And who the big player is in all of this is most of this used to have a nexus to underwriting at the federal government level. And that went away. We got an artificial boost from COVID. But prior to that, we were all having the conversation of like, and the state, our state, has actually been very forward thinking in saying, gosh, those revolving loan funds or those large scale bonding things, that's going to be shifted to a state level. I do appreciate the belt tightening from the infrastructure long-term point of view, but yeah, for sure, the state legislature is putting more burden on local municipalities. And
only to do their job when they're not doing their job. But I just want to point out the fact that, you know, again, we took a lot of money over the last several years and pulled it together and are loaning it out and even giving grants to local governments to help cover the costs. If you look at the amount of money that the state has given and or in regards to grants or low interest loans, it far exceeds anything else. And it's been a lot over the few years in order to try to help local governments keep their costs down. We view them as good partners. We want to work together collaboratively, and that's the goal.
So I want to talk a little bit more about costs, because we're talking about tax savings for families, and the Utah GOP really came out with a family first agenda for this. But the question is, how much can you do to help families? I think people are frustrated about housing costs. They're worried about how much groceries are still costing. There's a lot of different issues, and sometimes you can't legislate your way out of that mess. And I know that there's kind of a push and pull between these municipalities and mayors who are saying, you can't tell us what we need to do to build homes and zoning in our area, and the legislature kind of wants to be the boss of this. So how do you work that all out?
Yeah. So a couple things. So one, I just want to point out that it was the Utah House Majority Caucus that came out with that, not the Utah GOP. But affordability is the top priority for the Republicans in the House and the Senate this year, because we are hearing it. So years of really high inflation is catching up. It was okay when people's wages were rising at the pace they were, but wages have slowed, costs have continued to go up. And so it's starting to take a toll on families, and it's quickly becoming the number one concern, cost of living here in the state of Utah and across the United States for that matter. But where it's really affecting is our families. And so we're trying to take a family-first approach on this. We're wanting to try to find ways to reduce the cost of home ownership and create more opportunities for home ownership, whether it's through infrastructure, the state looking to partner with our locals about infrastructure, as well as other zoning issues and different things. Look, there's been some conversation about the state trying to take over the zoning. I'm here to tell you that has not happened, nor should it ever happen. However, what we can do is partner with our local governments to try to find ways to create more opportunities for our kids and grandkids to buy houses, and that's the goals that we're looking for today.
You know, one of the things I tend to sort of squash the Utah exceptionalism because I think we lead with it too much. But I will say...
So you don't think we're as awesome as we believe we are?
I am so tired of... I think people who tell you they're awesome may not be as awesome as they tell you. So one of the things we are exceptional at is seeing the problem. And what I like is that there is... what the state majority offices point out. One is they independently thought, and the Senate came out with their list, and the House came out with their list, and they both came to the same conclusion. And then the minority offices did the same. There's not much of a difference in political ideology when it comes to the focus on affordability. So I think that's nice. You guys have long reached across the aisle to give a rare compliment to the majority. I will say, and the speaker knows this better than anything, when you're in a supermajority in any other state, the majority's not going to talk to you. In this state, actually, the majority does reach out, see ideas from the minority, and affordability is everyone's top choice. I don't want to smooth over that. That's a really big deal that we're not using the public's pain to make political points. And I do think both caucuses are very focused on affordability. How they go about it, how they say it, more and more in politics, that's the big difference. Like my objection would be saying it's a family budget. That's fine. That's really public relations. You should be working on every Utahn living their best life, whether you're virtue signaling about how you want the world to look or not. So I just want to applaud that. I think of our 104, everyone's really focused. I do think, I don't want to say it caught us by surprise, but in the shortest time frame I've seen, we've gone from... particularly when it came to base needs of housing, we went to surprisingly affordable versus our wage to within probably 24 to 36 months. We're competing right now with California, Colorado. Like we're competing with high. Yeah. We didn't go to mid-size. We went right to the top of the list, and I think it has gobsmacked a lot of Utahns.
Yeah.
It's simply a supply and demand issue. We can talk a little bit more about that. But first, I have to hit on Utah is awesome, and Utah is the number one state.
I'm not saying it's not.
But,
I'm just saying enough already.
But you know, it's the national or the national accolades. I think that we like to point to. That it's not Utah telling us or the leaders telling us that we're number one. It's other national.
I'm just saying enough.
National
I gotta go fight win. We're number one.
Telling us. So I got to have dinner the other night with Mark Burnett. You know who Mark Burnett is? Mm-hmm. He's the producer of The Apprentice and Survivor and a whole host of other very successful shows.
Did you sell him a good business
Shark
idea?
Shark Tank, right? Another one, yeah. But he actually...
Are you going to be a TV star? Is this story going to be your own series?
No, everybody knows I'm not going to be a TV star. But let me come back to... that would be fun and interesting.
On your ranch?
On your ranch.
Yeah.
You got this.
I don't think people would watch it. But let's come back to what Mark said. Mark said, because he lives in Utah now, and he absolutely loves Utah.
His fourth and fifth homes are here.
You guys don't do a good enough job talking about how good Utah is.
He clearly doesn't live here if he thinks that.
He does. He says people need to know it, and you guys need to talk about it more because Utah is the best state in the nation.
I don't disagree. Enough already.
And I don't think I don't think the leaders should take the credit for that. The people really should take the credit.
Amen, because they're the ones doing it.
Good job, people. Well, one thing that I know that's been frustrating too when we're talking about high costs are gas prices. And last time you were in here, we were talking about the possibility that during the session there would be a bill that would help with gas prices. And I love this because I love drama and I love low prices. So I want you to lower my gas prices. I just really want to go fill up where it says under $2 a gallon.
For those of you on YouTube, I'm pulling out the declaration.
Oh, yes, you've got a declaration. So this is super official. So we have the House Speaker in Idaho. I can't say dirty words on the podcast. slapping down House Speaker Schultz here. He said a dirty word, well, as dirty as it gets for the House Speaker of Idaho about your plan to lower our gas taxes. He says it's bull manure. And this is because you want to take some of the burden away from people who are driving and paying the gas tax in our state every day and putting that partially on the refineries that are then shipping the oil out. Maura was kind enough to actually print out what they had to say about you. There's like a full documentary.
I love that it's in a whereas. This is a compliment to you, Speaker. Whereas the Utah Speaker of the House, Mike Schultz, has publicly stated through social media posts, videos, and interviews that Utahns pay higher gasoline prices because of out-of-state consumers, particularly Idaho residents, and have benefited from the Utah transportation system without paying the fuel taxes, despite the fact that Idahoans pay Idaho fuel taxes and and are not obligated to pay Utah's fuel taxes except when in Utah. He is not happy with you, Speaker.
No.
What did he say? Bull manure?
Yeah, it was in an interview he did with somebody, so that was his dirty talk for you.
Yeah.
And right now, currently in Utah, our regular is about $2.68 a gallon. They're paying more, about $2.78 a gallon in Idaho, so they're mad. They don't want to pay more, which I understand. We also don't want to pay more, but you said that some of these states are getting a free ride in some ways with what's getting sent out to other states. Do you really think it's a free ride, or are they just getting taxed someplace else?
Well,
and
let
we're
me just say
tax
this.
them?
I think it's bullshit, okay?
Ooh,
So,
bring the fire.
Look, it's a little bit childish and immature, I think, to do something like this. Although I am quite honored because I doubt that another Speaker of the House
you're gonna be
has ever had been chastised by the Idaho legislature. So standing up for Utahns, if I'm chastised in Idaho for doing that, then that is a badge that I'm going to wear very proudly. Look, in part of what he said that says it's going to raise gas prices in Idaho 25 cents a gallon. It is completely false. That's just not even close to being true. The truth behind this is the refineries are going to have to eat the cost of that. But right now, Utah residents have given huge tax exemption to the tunes of billions and billions and billions of dollars to the refineries and the petroleum industry here in the state of Utah. Not Idaho residents, that's Utah residents giving those tax exemptions. And so we just want a fair shake here at Utah. We don't think we should have some of the highest gas prices in the nation, especially when we produce the oil, pull it out of the ground, take it to our refineries right here on the Wasatch Front. We're saddled with the burden of having those 5 refineries right here on the Wasatch Front, which is okay. There's a lot of benefits that come from that as well. However, there's some burdens that come from that as well. And so we don't want to be saddled with all the burdens and then have to pay higher prices on top of that. And we just simply don't believe the tax exemptions that they've been given over the years is fair. So we'd like to pull that tax exemption back. We would like to lower the prices for Utahns. That's what this bill does. We're looking forward to having that discussion as we move forward. But I do think it's a little bit immature for what playing this tit for tat.
Isn't officially on the docket yet. Is it something that's realistically going to pass if it's still kind of going through the motions and lawyers?
I don't know what will happen, if it will pass or not. It will likely come out over the weekend or first of next week. I think the proposal that we're looking at will probably drop Utah's gas prices by about 15 cents a gallon. That's the goal.
So I shan't fight against the Speaker when he's this passionate. But
I was going to say, which Speaker are you teaming up with? Are you Idaho or Utah?
Ooh, that's true. So I will tell you that the opponents believe that our solve is too simplistic, and that, of course, big oil like refineries are going to pass it along to us, and that attacking the refineries doesn't hit the supply and demand and skips the part where the pipelines in portion. I'm just telling you what the other people are saying.
The refineries have a special tax exemption.
Yeah.
That's not, and Utahns are picking up the
Why
burden
didn't you
because
give
of
them
that.
the exemption? Did the legislature give them the exemption?
I'm telling you what your
Who did
opponents
this?
are saying.
Yeah, decades and decades and decades ago, the tax exemption was given. We're just saying we want to pull that tax exemption back. Everybody else that sells a product here in Utah has to pay tax on it.
Right, but the refineries are saying that's not the supply and demand problem, so you're not going to solve the pricing problem.
If you sell a gallon of gasoline in Utah, it's taxed, okay? You sell, so we would produce the gasoline in Utah, and we sell it. If it's sold in Utah, it's taxed. If we sell it to Idaho, it's not taxed. We're just saying lower the rate for Utahns, tax everybody That's all we're saying.
But you're acting like it's a source tax, and it's not. It's a delivery. So, I mean, the opponents to you are just saying you're not hitting on the delivery problem. You're not hitting on the pre-obligation problem. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you what they're saying.
Maura's the devil's advocate.
Saying that, but they say a lot of other things that's not true too. Like it's going to raise the gas prices 25 cents. Look, let me tell you what I believe, and most economists will tell you: the best tax policy is to broaden the base, lower the rate.
Like an
That's what
income
this
tax.
does. Why should Utahns have to pay tax on that gasoline that's manufactured here in Utah, and Idahans don't?
But it's not
fair.
like that. I mean, it's a difference between the company and the delivery and the deliverable. So you just are mixing those two taxes on purpose. I don't think you're unaware of it, but you're talking about refinery services aren't pump services, right? The journey our natural extraction takes, you're pulling out where you can extract pain on the largest private stakeholder. And that's fair. I mean, that's very much the way my people like to do it too.
Yeah,
so I'm okay with it. I'm just
You're
saying.
cool with taxing the rich refineries.
We love taxing the rich, but I'm just saying I get where they're complaining.
Right now, they're getting away with no tax. That's the problem. They have a tax exemption. That's not fair. We want Utahns, and Utahns have picked up the tab for that for decades and decades and decades.
We've always paid more. We've always paid more.
And I know that's what I'm trying to fix.
I know, but I'm just
we want
telling
Utahns
you,
to pay less
your
for gas.
opponents are saying this won't solve the
The
problem.
refineries are going to start holding church services on site so they can be tax exempt in a different way.
So wait a minute. Time out. You know what the refineries and everybody told me when I first started saying, why does Utah have higher gas prices than Colorado and Wyoming? Because our taxes are too high. That's what they said. Our taxes are higher. That's why we have higher gas prices. So it doesn't work when they say, the reason we have higher gas prices is because we have higher gas taxes. But then we say, okay, we're going to lower the gas tax so we can lower the prices. And then they say, oh, that doesn't work. That's the logic of the refineries.
So the first time in our
petroleum
history
industry.
of having these conversations, I ain't fighting you, friend. I'm just telling you what they're saying.
Well, this is fun. So bottom line, once this gets online, we're going to be seeing that you're going to try to put the tax burden back on the refineries, and that would mean that you could then repeal or take away some of the taxes
we're just
paying
going
at the
to
pump.
we're going to take away the exemption that they've been given. That's all this does. Takes away the exemption that they've been given, so that every gasoline gets taxed, not just the gas that gets sold in Utah.
And we're
every
paying
gallon
38
of gasoline.
cents a gallon.
Yes, and we're hoping to drop that somewhere around 25 cents a gallon.
All right. That would be much better than
It
California.
would be much better.
All right. Sentencing Commission, the judiciary and the legislature are in a bit of a, what would you call it? Tug of war right now of powers. And there's several bills going through that involve the judiciary. This is one of them. And this is your bill, Speaker, House Bill 274 to reconfigure the Sentencing Commission. Tell me what's wrong with the commission.
Yeah, right now, well, so when some of my concern is with Sentencing Commission is they come out with these really low sentence recommendations for people that have committed really serious crimes. And there's been several examples out there given, but I'll just speak to one without going too much detail. But someone that had committed a second crime for child pornography and having and distributing child pornography, over 300 to 400 images and videos that he had possession of and had been distributing. And these are real victims in these videos that's being spread around. And the judge gave a very light sentence and then pointed to the Sentencing Commission and the courts pointed to the Sentencing Commission as the reason for that very light sentence. And when you look at the Sentencing Commission guidelines, it ranged from zero to 250 days approximately. And for someone that committed that serious of a crime, to recommend a range that spent from 0 days in jail up to 200 and something, I just think we need to do a better job. I blame some of this on the legislature as well over the years. When I first came into the legislature, there was a movement happening nationwide to say, let's reduce penalties and try more reforms. And that clearly hasn't worked. It's people are frustrated. Public safety, as we've done polling, is one of the top issues for Utahns, especially in Salt Lake County. It's one of their top issues. And so we've got to find ways to hold people accountable for their decisions. And this catch and release policy that's been happening needs to come to an end. The Sentencing Commission and their recommendations have been part of the problem. So this is a way to take the defense attorneys off of the Second Sentencing Commission. People say, well, you want to get away do away with the voice of the defense attorneys. That's not true. We're just saying, I don't know that they should be able to influence the process before it goes to courts. The role of the defense attorney is to be in the courtroom and representing their client, and that's where they can spend the time defending their clients.
This is one of many thinly veiled attacks on the judiciary because
time
the
out.
legislature is ticked that they disagree.
No, this is
let
not,
me tell you
no,
where
no,
the
no, this is not the judiciary.
This
is a separate. The Sentencing Commission is not part of the judiciary. That's not. It has nothing to do with the judiciary. But when the judiciary
your objection
points
is
back
to how a judge ruled when it came to the sentencing guidelines.
No,
and that example you give is spot on. There is no one who will defend that the guidelines were used. And the incremental abuse of the guidelines is absolutely agreed upon by most people, including the attorneys. And the fact that in defense of this, at your hearing, one of the judges said, hey, you know what? The guidelines are one of the things that I use, but I also use these other things, is an indication that you may want the judiciary to understand the guidelines better. I'm tracking on all of this, but I am also starting with this is yet one of the thinly veiled attacks on the judiciary, and that's why it came to the attention. The other thing is...
Does this hurt the judiciary to swap out defense attorneys for
what
more
it
law
hurts
enforcement?
Is having more voices at the table unequivocally is better. And what this bill does is take out one voice and shift it. Now, you'll notice there is no critique of the rest of the people sitting at the table, even though there are a lot of other people sitting at the table. So we looked at the table of who makes up the sentencing guidelines, and interestingly enough, we only want to punish one voice. The balance is gone. We have no representation from the legal side. We have more representation to law enforcement. I don't have any problem with representation of law enforcement, but it is interesting if you say you're coming at this from an analysis, then you don't completely take away a seat at the table, which is what fundamentally this bill does. This doesn't do anything. It just punishes a single sector of the Sentencing Commission, and it doesn't punish everyone else. The other interesting thing about this bill, and then I will hush a little, but like this, so one of the things that I love about this bill, and so this is going to be backhanded compliment, is that it is unusual that the Speaker of the House will sponsor a bill that is that is an actual policy discussion. So I want to give some credit to the Speaker for putting his name behind passion. Often what we see is that if the Speaker and the President do a bill, it's sort of a broader bill, a bigger policy issue. So hats off that we have a Speaker that still wants to roll up his sleeves. I mean that. But you also have to understand the pageantry of this. Like, who chaired the committee is a friend of ours on the program, Rep. Wilcox. And you need to know, because I sat through a whole hell of a lot of meetings about the Speaker yesterday on this, and what happens is it is so unusual to watch the Speaker come in and testify at a table. And the other bit about this is the machinations that stakeholder groups have to come through because of the inevitability in many ways of a Speaker-driven bill. So how do you compromise and have conversation? And I will say again, one of the things about this representative is he will continue to listen. But so far, I think he's got it wrong when you have different seats at the table and you're only eliminating one voice. I think it is fair to see that as punishment, not policy.
Well, let me just say this. The one voice that I'm suggesting that gets eliminated is the voice that argues for 0 days incarceration.
Yeah, things that you disagree with. They argue for things you don't agree with.
Well, I would just argue.
So that's really healthy because they can't control the sentencing board.
No.
You're eliminating a voice without changing an outcome. You are punishing a portion of people who you don't like their attitude and what they say.
Oh, no. I just don't like the fact that they don't think violent criminals should be spending any time
and
in jail.
that's histrionics. There's nobody who doesn't think violent criminals should spend time in jail. There's not a position. There's nobody walking around going, you know what I want? Violent criminals.
Who argues for 0 days in jail for child pornography? Defense attorneys.
They're defending. You are mad at the judiciary. I get that
I'm
part.
not mad. This has nothing to do with the
Is
judiciary.
the hope that they'll
This is
change some of the
sentencing
sentencing guidelines and make them so they're longer? I know that when we cover court
so that
cases,
they'll adhere.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of frustration from people where they hear a sentence. I'll give an example, and I don't know if anything would change with this, but someone would get a DUI. I have a friend whose son was hit and killed by a repeat drunk driver, DUI, left him to die. Eventually was caught later. He was given, I think, up to 20 years. It's been 3 years now. He is up for parole. And a lot of people are like, how can he be up for parole? Well, he got 20 years. So a lot of people don't understand sentencing, and there's kind of a sliding scale and guidelines. Are you hoping that some of that changes where there's more a set sentence, or what are you hoping the outcome will be?
Probably more mandatory minimums. And that's where the defense bar does. I mean, they go nuts over mandatory minimums, everyone. And that it is what it is. That's why you have the defense bar arguing for 0 days in jail as part of the range for violent criminals or for crimes. And that's just wrong to me. I think, look, I get all voices need to be heard. And that's where we're not taking away the voice of the defense attorney inside the courtroom.
You're taking them off of you're taking them off of the
But who's the one that makes the decision? Who's the one that makes the decision?
The judge.
The judge. And the defense attorney can be there arguing on behalf of their client why their client should get a reduced sentence.
Right, which is why this is a bill to punish the judge, because you want to hem them into their decision-making protocol.
The defense attorney shouldn't be allowed to influence the process before it gets to the courtroom.
They should have a seat at the table when the guidelines are constructed. That's all this is. You're eliminating their seat at the table. You're not changing the outcomes of sentencing. You're eliminating their seat at the table.
No. We will change the outcomes of the Sentencing Commission's guidelines. That is the goal of this, and that's what tomorrow's question.
And so why isn't this big legislature? Why isn't this big old legislature coming into expertise that has actually a good bit of balance and a good bit of tug and pull there?
So let me tell you why. So in 1995, the legislature created the Sentencing Commission. And so, we could just do away with the Sentencing Commission. There's about 12 or so right now. But the legislature could do away with the Sentencing Commission altogether and go back to the way it was before the mid-1990s and just do it themselves. I don't know that that's the right way, but the legislature, constitutionally, it's their authority to do this. We delegated it. I'm saying we need to have a better balance.
Why just eliminate this seat? Why move this seat to more law enforcement? And I to be clear, I like the law enforcement seats, but from my reading, what do you hope to structurally change there?
I'm open to what you said earlier. Is this going to be the bill that passes? No, it's not going to be. However, you started a point to where I think makes the change. If someone can come along and say, hey, here's a better pathway forward, then I'm all ears. And I truly understand that there's probably a better pathway forward out there, and I'm open to that. I have not heard it yet. I've met with the defense attorneys. The pathway forward didn't work.
Y'all are mad at each other.
Does law enforcement have a seat at the table already, or you're just wanting to add more seats?
They have a seat. So let's specify law enforcement in this instance are the chiefs and the sheriffs, and those are seen as two separate bodies with two separate approaches. I don't need to speak for him. This bill would give more seats to the sheriffs.
Yeah.
Which is not bad. I'm not complaining about the more. I'm complaining about the takeaway.
Currently, the sheriffs have one seat at the table, and the defense attorneys have 3 seats at the table.
Also,
victims. Think about it. Victims have 1 seat at the table. Defense attorneys have 3 seats at the table. And people wonder why.
No,
they come out with recommendations.
They don't wonder why people who participate. This is a highly technical board and commission, and this also is a ton of time. So, this is a high level of expertise, and it takes a ton of time. So, picking the folks, it makes sense that the experts in the area have predominantly more seats. And you didn't take them from 3 to 1. You took them to the 0.
Are you negotiable on that?
I'm absolutely negotiable, but when victims have 1 seat at the table and defense attorneys have 3 seats at the table.
But you didn't give the victims more. You didn't increase their amount.
We're not done yet. We'll see where this at. Again, I fully recognize maybe there's a better option out there, We'll see where it goes. And I am.
I don't think
as
that was
a
a very
policymaker.
nice tone speaker.
It might not have been. As a
That's your nice
policymaker,
voice.
as a policymaker, and as a citizen of this state and Speaker of the House, I do wonder how in the hell we have 0 days recommendation in jail for somebody that commits such a heinous crime. I
Amen to
wonder
that. Amen to that. I
let's
just think
fix
that
it.
good policy does not take. My pet peeve through the history of policy making is like, my cousin's uncle had something happen, so let's change the law. So like, I get it, but like, that's not how long-term policy is made. You're right. Your examples are unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And it's also unacceptable that no one is held accountable. And then we can always point out examples, but you cannot make policy based on one example.
This isn't one example.
One
This
must
is
have
broad,
a long-term
as
point
I've
of
had
view.
That's why the Prosecutors Association, the sheriffs, the chiefs of police, law enforcement, they're all supportive of this.
All right, new topic here. Utah won a bid, if you didn't know that they were in on this right now, a $30 million bid for U.S. Magnesium's land, water rights, and mining agreements. This happened Tuesday as part of a wider strategy to refill the shrinking Great Salt Lake. How does this refill the Great Salt Lake? Well, they used a lot of water. Interestingly enough, we used to be the nation's largest magnesium producer, I guess, which is interesting because right now magnesium is trending in the health world because people need magnesium, but they've gone defunct. Maura, we now own the rights to this. Do we keep making some magnesium, save some water? What are we going to do with this?
I mean, I think we're figuring it out. I think one of the things that the state did was jump on this opportunity pretty quick. They've put together, I don't believe we've finished putting together the finance package, which I'm going to say is to our credit. Like we knew that there was a short fuse on the bidding process, and now I understand that we are in the process of constructing the finance for it.
So we've done that. The finance is done. We passed that bill yesterday.
You got someone to give you a loan?
No, the state put up the money to buy this, and what an incredible opportunity, right? And you know, you hate to see any business any business in the state of Utah go out of business, but this was a business that was in bankruptcy and going through that process. And rather than see it get sold to another business, Utah said, we're going to step up and buy it for the water rights. And it is probably one of the biggest decisions that will be made for the Great Salt Lake. There's about 150,000 acre feet of water rights that come with this, which is a huge amount. Right now, that's right there's about 2 to 3 inches of the Great Salt Lake right now, just that one water right. So
that was used for evaporation at the plant, as I understand it.
Yeah, what they do is take the water out of the lake, they put it into evaporation ponds, and then pull the minerals out of it. And so that was a huge win for the state of Utah. It comes with an additional 75,000 acre feet of water on the west side in the West Desert that will then be that water will be put back into the Great Salt Lake as well. So it's a huge win for the state of Utah, huge win for the Great Salt Lake. And I got to give credit to Jamie Barnes, the Director of State Forestry and Fire, and to Joel Ferry and Casey Snyder for putting this deal together. It's been amazing.
Do you know what would also help if it would snow? Then you wouldn't have to be buying water from people. Yeah,
help a lot.
Weirdest winter ever. I want to check in on where Utah's appeal to the Supreme Court on redistricting is going. We're seeing full congressional candidates out there. I think we've got 10, 11, 12 on the Democratic side at this point, ready for the new districts the judge approved. The legislature's appealing. Where are you at right now? What's happening for people at home that want to know what's going to happen next?
Yeah, so we're really disappointed in Judge Gibson's decision. We were hopeful to say, hey, we're conceding basically in your courts. You've given all the remedies possible to the plaintiffs. Can we package that up and move it to the Supreme Court? She's playing keep away with the map itself and decision. So the November decision, she's not allowing to move forward, and it's unfair. It's kind of unprecedented for the most part when you have the defendants, the state, say, look, you've given everything you possibly could give. We're fine throwing in the towel. Please, let's move this ball forward. It's really disappointed that it's not happened. And she's not doing it for one reason, because she wants to hold it out as long as possible to affect the 2026 election. That's the problem when you have unelected judges making these decisions and picking maps. What she has let go forward was a decision, her August decision, and you know that's likely. Even though we disagree with it, it's not our strongest case in front of the Supreme Court. We're still hopeful to find a pathway forward for the 2026 election, but without Judge Gibson letting that go forward, It's really disappointed, and we really don't have our best arguments. And so that's taking that opportunity away from the voice of the people for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the state hasn't done a very good job. The legislature hasn't been a very good job using their mechanisms and fighting this very well. The other interesting thing, if we're going to put out there that we care about the citizens' voice as as a decision-making point, poll after poll is telling the legislature that they don't support their position on Prop 4. So, I mean, there's a little bit of like, I'm fighting for the people and I'm held accountable because I'm an elected official, but oh, by the way, I'm going to continue to ignore what the people are saying on this particular issue. But, you know, so be it, because this will, at the end of the day, be played out in both elections and in a GOP-led. And I do want to differentiate that from the legislature, because I do think it's, I mean, there might be some who support both, but they're different efforts. And a state ballot measure, which is specifically about Prop 4. And what gets confusing is all of this is about Prop 4, but several of the legal cases are actually not exactly about Prop 4. And we'll also have a 2026 election where people can decide where they want to come down on this
So
issue.
even though we disagreed, we said, well, fine, going through Proposition 4 process when the judge came out with the ruling. The problem is the judge didn't follow Proposition 4 either. You had one unelected judge create her own process that was outside of the Constitution and outside of Proposition 4. So it's not even the people. And so that's what's frustrating, or one of the more frustrating things to the legislature, and why people are upset about.
And to just put too fine of a point on the crux of it, many of us don't feel like it was unconstitutional. Many of us did think that it interpreted constitutional law the way we've been interpreting constitutional law. And many people did find that what she was doing, in fact, was a strict and original interpretation of Prop 4. And the legislature is just mad that they didn't get listened to when they started to mess around with Prop 4.
Nowhere in Prop 4 does it allow for the judge to pick a map.
No,
Nowhere
it
in
allows
Prop 4
her
does-
to pick from
Nowhere in Prop
standing.
4, nowhere in Prop 4 does it allow for League of Women Voters, a far left organization,
Yes,
to draw a
so
map.
far left.
It
Crazy.
doesn't even allow for that. And so that's what's hard. Not an independent redistricting commission wasn't involved here. Prop 4 wasn't followed. Again, follow the laws, follow the Constitution, and
Here's
we'll be
where
fine.
I can offer some empathy. I understand what it is like to not get what you want and how hard it is to accept authority that isn't listening to what you want. As a minority in Utah, I feel you, Mike. Like, this must be really hard, because I think what you guys are having a hard time with is accepting the rule of law and accepting that you may not be the only actor in the electoral process. And I mean, again, you've heard me say this. I have done more ballot measures statewide than anyone else. This is exactly the way I had the Utah Constitution explained to me 20 years ago.
No, Article 9 is very clear, and it says that the Utah legislature shall divide the state into districts. It does not say a judge. It does not say an independent redistricting commission. We fully understand Prop 4 was passed, and that created a process for an independent redistricting commission to make recommendations to the legislature. That process was not followed. That process was taken away. That's not what happened, and that's why that we're upset. Not that we didn't get what we wanted, but because the Constitution means something. We all swore an oath to protect that Constitution, and the judge should be ashamed of herself because she also swore an oath to that same Constitution, and she created a process that's outside of Prop 4.
I'm not ashamed of the judge. I'm appreciative of the judge for having read the entire Constitution and not just the parts that you want to cherry pick. But the other thing I'll just tell you that is enormously telling is that the GOP-led, who has a boatload
signature
of
gathering,
money,
yeah.
and they are trying to get on the ballot to rescind Proposition 4. And I will just say, I have said over and over, I thought they would make it. I thought with the amount of money that they had, I'm like, they're going to make it. They still have 2 weeks, and 2 weeks is a really long time. But as of today, they are not at a pace. If I were leading this campaign, I would be highly concerned about the take rate and the rate that they're seeing acceptance on this. So that's ultimately, I also hope some information for our fine, duly elected folks about how people are feeling about this subject in general, and are they in concert with their constituents?
We're at 64,000 signatures yesterday, if you're keeping track, and they need 140,000.
They need 140 qualified, so that's not, you need to go 10, 20, 15% above that.
So, a couple things. I would say, and again, I am not involved in this. I don't know. So, but I also know that there is a strategy to holding on to the signatures as late as you can.
You can't do it anymore because as you find people put a ticker on the clock there.
Yes, but there is a time frame in which you can.
Yes,
so
you can hold for a minute.
And so I'm not saying, because I don't know, but I'll say this. I would wait until the time has come,
I agree.
2 weeks from now,
Totally.
and let's see what happens at the end.
All right. It'll be interesting to see. There was a story in the Deseret News today saying that there's been a little bit of drama on both sides where people feel like they signed and got tricked and didn't know what they were signing.
That's always
And then
the thing.
yes, I know. Yeah. And then the other side where people are grabbing the packets and ripping up the signatures. And
I'm going to continue to do my part. That if you're a signature gatherer,
you're going to chat with
I
you.
am going to make sure I'm going to chat you up for
Mama
10 or
Maura
15
is gonna
minutes.
ask about
I'll
everything.
spend as much time as you want, and I'm going to see how well you're trained to waste your time with me. So I'm going to keep doing my civic duty.
Interesting. One of somebody who worked in our station just came back the other day from downtown Salt Lake walking around, and there was a signature gather for one of the Democratic candidates for Congress, and they were trying to get signatures, and they were asking them what they were doing and what it was for, and the person who was gathering the signatures couldn't even answer the questions there. So sometimes I wonder how educated the people who are gathering signatures are as to what they're trying to tell people, what they're trying to accomplish.
Some are. It's
they're
like
not
everybody.
educated.
I do want to mention really quickly, I'll link it in the podcast if you want to look, but Libertas Institute actually did their first poll ever. One of their polls in there was about this very issue. I print things out so small I can't even see them, but it did say that most Utah voters would like to see not just the legislature, but another piece of the puzzle in there too of what happens as we go forward. So we will continue watching that. Also, there's been a lot of fighting going on over the budget in the federal government. They're also working right now to make sure there's not a government shutdown. Now it looks like there's going to be a partial shutdown. All of it a fight, Maura, over ICE money at this point and DHS spending. So they actually did their job, most of it, up until this point. ICE is the big fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's nice is it looked like yesterday afternoon it moved to a partial.
Yeah.
So it's still, we're still using the budget. We're still, completely punting on our primary responsibility every September of passing a budget. But I do think one of the things that's interesting about the ICE discussion is it's more complicated than Republican and Democrat. Immigration is a little more clear, but ICE is a little less clear. But I think at the end of the day, what I'll skip is it looks like we're seeing early indicators that this will disrupt some budgets, which won't be good. But it looks like both the White House and the Democrats are coming to the table.
Yeah, I like coming to the table. It's a good thing.
You know, what I would love to see, Congress, President Trump, focus 2026 on fixing the immigration system and fixing our immigration policies. It's not that hard to solve this issue. We need to create a pathway for people to become legal citizens as far as working and coming into the state, paying your taxes, coming into this nation, paying your taxes, working, creating a pathway to citizenship there for those that truly want to come here and be productive. If you get caught doing something you shouldn't, you're automatically out and don't get to come back. So there's a better way to do this overall, and I really would hope that that's where Congress focuses.
The speaker's spot on about this, and this is an area where Utah has led on, and that is the heart of the compact. This administration, the administration before that, the administration before that, no one wants to talk about the fixing the immigration process. This is, I don't mean to say this by making light of it, but we have an administrative problem, and we keep subording that to political victories, and that is Republicans and Democrats, and it is hurting our nation. And you're right, like we have yet, and it's every single part of the system should take Utah's approach, which is address the process.
That's exactly it. If you fix the immigration problem, it solves the ICE issue.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. And so that's where, Utah's great because we look holistically. We go in, we find the problems. at where it starts and fix it. That's what Congress needs to do on this situation.
I wish we had another hour. We're unfortunately out of time. The speaker has a busy schedule. I feel like I want to get you back every week to talk about what's happening in the session. There are a lot of important bills out there, but thank you so much for making time. Speaking of ICE, there are a lot of protesters out there exercising their free speech rights right now and might be on State Street, so hopefully you can get back to the Capitol. Any final words either of you want to give us before we wrap it up here?
Hey, it's great to be back. I actually have a lot of fun with you guys, so thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for being here, and thanks for playing nice with each other. Please join us again next week. We are going to be talking more issues as the legislation marches on, record bills, so we've got a lot to talk about.